Everybody, it is H-Town Wheelhouse and Eric the Man Huysman. We're here. It is the off season, but we are not taking off anytime soon. Justin Verlander's in free agent limbo, and Joe Espada has been basically given another year under Dusty Baker. Also, Omar Lopez for first base. It looks like the coaching staff is intact. Bill Furcus has been moved into the point man role at GM. We're going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about what this means for Jake Myers. What does this mean for Starling Marte, um, Wilson Contreras, and so many other free agents out there. The Astros have a lot of work to do in the offseason, some holes to fill. So let's talk about this and more on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talk Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can I find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros.
Guys, thank you for making the Locked On Astros podcast your first listen. We just passed 6,000 subscribers, so thank you for doing that. While you're subscribing to us, make sure you go ahead and like us. And I'm doing a live TikTok right now, and people are actually watching me do it live. So go and follow Locked On Astros on TikTok, and go and follow H-Town Wheelhouse as well as Eric the Man on TikTok as we try to get our numbers up there. But go and make us your first listen every day at Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Check out the Locked On Astros podcast. So definitely a lot to talk about. And I just did Talk Astros with Brandon, and it was crazy. We had to fit. Imagine, we're just talking about what happened this weekend, but we talked about the entire week in like 22 minutes. So that was pretty jam-packed. But a lot happened. I know that we did do a special about James Click, and that he and the Astros parted ways, just to say it nicely. And now the Astros are in search for a GM. And earlier, it seemed like the Astros had promoted Bill Furcus, who was the senior director of baseball strategy, and Charles Cook, who is the senior director of player evaluation, all to assistant general managers, joining Andrew Ball, who's one of the few people left over from the James Click administration. And they are actually the ones who are going to be the three-headed beast for the GM or acting GM right now. But a little bit later, it was announced that Bill Furcus is actually going to spearhead this coalition, if you want to call this, until they find somebody to be the actual GM for the Houston Astros. So go see what's going on. So so Brett, any surprise in that situation?
No, I think it's good. I think you need a point man in that situation. I don't think you need a three-headed monster where hold on one second. Can you close the door, please? Where you don't need three people making one decision. You need a point man. And Bill Furcus apparently is the most trusted of this because he's been with the club since 2013, Eric. So he's been with the club. He's been here, and he knows the culture. Jim Crane obviously trusts him. So I think this is a great move. And to have most of the coaches back, probably every one of the coaches that are going to be back, that is a good sign of stability for the Houston Astros. I know the media was really trying to spin this as the sky is falling, the Astros organization is falling apart. You win a World Series, you fire your general manager, you fire an assistant GM. It really doesn't make any sense to freak out about it. And this is not uncommon. And what they've done and what we have to do is we have to trust James Click here. James Click has positioned this team to be a perennial winner, not just now, but one of the most well put together teams of all time. One of the best bullpens, if not the best bullpen of all time. And these men in the front office, they will help steady the ship, and they're going to make the right decisions. I'm excited to see what they do this offseason.
Well, if you talk about Ball, there had to be some reason why Crane decided to leave him and not Powers. It's just like, did he just get a hat and put the two names in a hat like 50 times and then just reach in there and say, okay, Powers, you are out. Ball, you are in. Congratulations. You get the rose. Or,
No, I don't think so. So,
yeah,
I understand what you're saying there, but Jim Crane, he's so involved, he's so meticulous, he's so about the details. He knew exactly who he wanted to keep. He knew exactly who he thought would be a click guy and stay in and not be an asset, and he knew who would. And he kept the right guys, he let go of the wrong guys. And look, I don't know if y'all have seen the article, but Michael Schwab put out an article about the tension between Click and Crane, and this has been going on for some time. It goes back to the Starling Marte trade. It goes back to the Wilson Contreras trade. It goes back to several things that were going to happen, especially Jake Myers, Eric. And Jim Crane asked asked James Click, "Are you willing to basically stake your career on Jake Myers?" And he said yes. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see James Click exiting. Now, I don't think that's a knock on Jake Myers. I think Jake Myers has had a tough go since his injury. He's kind of been behind the eight ball, but there have been some things going on, and there have been some things that I think the writing was on the wall, and this was inevitable to happen. He said he had heard as early as 2022, beginning of the season, that this was Click's last year.
yeah, and I think that just the whole situation that Click came in, he came in as a, oh crap, I just had to fire my GM in Jeff Luno. So what am I going to do? There's this guy with the Rays. I know the Rays are a very frugal organization. They don't like to spend a lot of money, but let me just give this kid a chance. And Click came over and he made some interesting moves. Like Pedro Baez was an interesting move that didn't pay off. Ryan Stanek paid off really big time. So he's made some good moves. He's made some bad moves, but that's I guess you have to look at the quality or the impact of the moves. If you look at all the moves that happened at the trade deadline, none of them really impacted the World Series, really.
Well, right. Well, the thing that you look at, apparently Marte was someone that Crane really wanted. And
Mhm.
Click didn't want him because he was tied to PEDs in the past. Crane obviously didn't care because he was cleared of that. And he was clearly playing. I don't know what you just said. He was clearly playing at a level that the Astros wanted him. The Astros could have
Right.
used Marte. Marte could have been an asset to this team. It is just one of those things where you look at the free agents that are out there, you get the free agents the Astros could have gotten. And since we won, you don't really say, well, if we would have got them, would we have had a better chance to win? Because the Astros won with what they did. So even though some of his moves were stinkers, the moves he did make in the bullpen were good. But I just think his welcome was overstayed before 2022 even got started.
Yeah, we're talking about Starling Marte, guys, not Martez, Francis Martez. Francis
Yes.
Martez that the Astros gave
No.
multiple opportunities
Hold
to
on.
kind of right the ship.
Yeah.
So,
Like, no, really, Francis
no,
Martin, like,
it's fine. It's fine. So, yeah, I think that would have been. In fact, I heard a lot of rumors at that time that Marte was actually somebody that Astros players wanted, and I heard that it was pretty close to being a done deal, but it fell through. I also heard that Contreras trade was pretty close to being a done deal at the trade deadline, but that fell through. And now we know why. It's because Dusty Baker knew that he wanted to play Martin Maldonado as the everyday catcher, and you have somebody with Contreras who is in a free agent year, and he wanted to get as many everyday at bats as he could to prove that he's worthy of whatever deal he gets, and he wasn't going to get that with the Houston Astros. Now, if you go back and look, he may have retrospectively with everything that happened with all the injuries and all the poor performances with Mancini not doing much. But I think that when he was told no, James Click just had to be like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go get Trey Mancini and Christian Vasquez. And the whole I'm not gonna even get onto him about Will Smith. Will Smith was mostly just to get an extra arm in a
W-
bullpen for the rest of the season and to dump Jake Odorizzi's 2023 contract, which the Braves had to eat 10 million of that, which is crazy. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about Click.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, look, he still is the topic of the day, but I do want to add this in before this happened in 2022 with Starling Marte. Prior to 2021, you remember the Astros were in on talks for Liam Hendricks. Okay, they weren't
Mhm.
interested; they nearly signed him, but Click didn't want him because of the high cost, and Crane got upset that the deal didn't happen because he would have been willing to spend the money. So hold on one second. Sammy, I need you to.
Okay, yeah. So Wilson Contreras, according to Jon Heyman, is somebody that the Astros are looking at bringing back this year. The reason why this year is different than last year, you do have an opening at DH. If the Astros are all gung ho at making Alvarez the left fielder, and then you have a position that's open at DH. The only problem, though, is if you bring back Michael Brantley would be the DH, then you don't have a spot for Wilson Contreras. So you can't get both of them. And you're not
Well,
going to
if you
bring,
get right, but I think if you get Wilson Contreras, you're primarily bringing him into catch. I don't think you're bringing him into DH. Wouldn't you be? I mean, because that's his primary position.
have you met Dusty Baker?
No, no, I know, no,
I
but
would bet that he would go with Martin Maldonado most of the
oh, okay.
time.
Well, no,
And
no, I'm not saying he wouldn't, but what I'm saying is I think the DH spot would be easily platooned with. I mean, even if you had those three, um, if you have Alvarez, if you have Brantley, and if you have Contreras,
yeah,
I don't think they go get Contreras if I'm being, perfectly honest. But yes, so look, here's the thing. If you want to go and make a prop bet, if you even want to put a bet down for the Astros run next year in the World Series, you can do that. Where do you go? You go to betonline.net. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer to esports. We've got all that you need at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those there at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
guess who's back? Back again. Joe Espada is back again to be the Dusty Baker's number one guy. I was trying to do my Joker voice, but I couldn't get it out at that moment. But Joe Espada is somebody that Dusty Baker relies on very heavily because you got Dusty Baker, who's a very old school manager, and then you have Joe Espada, who's probably really into analytics. He's a younger guy, and he's probably with a new one. So definitely something to kind of look at. And so I think that Joe Espada coming back is good for Houston Astros. Omar Lopez is also back. Now we just got to have Murphy re-signed. He's one of the Astros pitching coaches. I don't think that's going to be an issue. And also, no, Brett had to go for something else, not because of my bad singing, but and then also the catching coach is somebody else that they have to re-sign. But pretty much when Baker re-signed with the Astros, he said, I want to have all my same guys. I want to have my coaching staff back. And so Joe Espada is the key to that coaching staff. I mean, granted, I know that you can probably, if Baker is the great manager, we all think he is. Some people think he is. Nobody thinks he is. Then whatever it is, but Espada has so much influence on him. So I think that's a big issue. That's a big accomplishment. So the other news from this weekend was the fact that Rafael Montero is is going to be back in Astros bullpen for the next 3 years. Okay, so I know I put it on Twitter. I didn't mean for it to be me saying it's a bad thing, but according to Spot Track, the market value for Rafael Montero was 8.1 million or something like that, and he ended up getting 11.5 million. But that's the market right now. You have Diaz and with the Mets who got a 20 million AAV per year. And then you had Suarez with the Padres. He was only supposed to get like 6.2. He ended up getting like 9.4 AAV. So if you had to pay to bring back Montero, and I think Montero on a 3-year deal, the total value was 34.5 million. I think that's a great deal because the strength of the Astros team last year was the bullpen, and you needed him. And so,
Well, I think here's the thing too, because I see a lot of talk on the side here about Corey Lee, people saying he's not ready yet. Well, look, Corey Lee at some point is going to be ready this next year. Pedro Leon at some point is going to come up. Pedro Leon will probably be up in June, but the reason why he won't be up sooner is because he's got so many holes in his swing. We're going to have someone like Kenny Van Doren on, or we're going to get some minor league people on soon to talk about the Astros and who it looks like the Astros will end up signing or bringing up. You've got Sean Dubin down there. You've got Paredes. You've got a lot of people that could help this club out. You've got Andre Scrub, who's going to a winter league. That guy's got unbelievable spin rate. And if he can get healthy and stay healthy, he is definitely a pitcher that can help you in the bullpen. You've got Martinez next year, Eric. You got Mashinsky. You got all these players. But I think when you look at position players, you got Hensley, you got Lee. You've got these kids that you're going to have to give a shot. So if you do sign someone like a position player, like a Contreras, then that means that you're going to put him probably on a 3-year deal. And Corey Lee, what in the heck are you doing with him? And I think they are more concerned about the future than they are the immediate impact. They don't need immediate impact guys. And in my article that I'm writing right now and constructing, and the case I'm making for DeGrom, Bassett, and Rodon is with the understanding that Justin Verlander isn't back. And on the preface that if you look at 2022, we used 9 starters over the season and 20 plus pitchers. So you have a reason to be able to bring them back. Yeah, Nico Goodrum was one of the bad moves that James Click made. He's gone. And so is Pedro Baez. He was one of the bad moves that James Click made. But at the end of the day, GMs are going to swing and miss. And we get this. What kind of role is Brian Abreu going to take this next year? Is he going to take a longer innings relief role? Is he going to be, and look, I'm going to discuss my article, hybrid starters. They're gonna hybrid these starters like they did Javier, like they did Urquidy, like they did with Luis, because what does it do, Eric? It saves their arms. The wealth of talent that this team has and the depth of the arms that they have plays perfectly into a back-to-back run for 2023.
yeah, definitely. And something that we do need to start looking at. I know it's getting kind of close, but the winter meetings is coming up, and I think the deadline for the Rule 5 is coming up as well. So I need to look for the exact date. But one of the players is somebody that we talked about a lot on the podcast is Corey Julks. He's somebody that needs to be protected this year, and he actually had a great season with the Sugarland Space Cowboys, batting .270 with 854 OPS. He had 31 home runs, 22 stolen bases, and 89 RBIs. So it's hard to translate that into what he would do as a regular, everyday MLB player. But that looks like 5-tool potential. He can steal base. He can score a run. He can, I don't know what he is defensively. I don't know that much about him. But that's somebody the Astros definitely have to save a spot for on the 40-man roster at some point. So that's going to go into the decision making. And we'll have to definitely look for the next show as we go deeper into who do we need to protect from the Rule 5 draft. We'll have to look at how many roster spots available. And so, yeah, definitely Corey Julks is somebody that you could be seeing pretty soon with the Astros. Hopefully not, because Kyle Tucker is pretty good in right field.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even on the 40-man roster, though.
I know.
So you only have Jake Myers. Joe Perez is still on the 40-man roster. JJ Metajevic, Yanner Diaz. So you've got those guys. David Hensley, obviously, is on the 40-man. You got Whitley, Taylor, Paredes, Mashinsky, Matan, Martinez, Dubin, Blanco, and Bielak. So you've got all these guys on this 40-man that there's really not a whole lot of holes. And if they get rid of, they would have to let some of these guys go, or I don't know how many moves they have for each guy, right? In the minor leagues to move up and down. And I know they can only move up and down so many times. Um, and yes, I will address this. The Houston Astros see Brian Abreu as a starter. I'm not telling you I see him as a starter. I'm telling you, ever since he's come into this organization, their future projection for Brian Abreu is to be a 1 through 5 starter on this Houston Astros roster. Now, whether you agree with that or not as a fan, I'm telling you what their scouts and what their people and basically player evaluations, they want Brian Abreu to be a starter. They think they can get him there. Now, whether he gets there or not, I don't know. He's perfect in this role right now, but he's also grown in his role. He's gone from not being able to last an inning, walking 3 or 4 batters, to being able to go multiple innings and to be able to go in more than one inning, 2 or 3 days in a row. So just be patient and watch Abreu's development. That's where the Astros see him in the long term as a starter. He's still pretty young, and I wouldn't mind seeing it here in a couple seasons. Maybe it doesn't happen this year, but he could be a piggyback starter. He could be someone that you pair with Luis Garcia, with Jose Urquidy. It's if you want to save Lance McCullers' arm, and Lance McCullers doesn't go to the bullpen, you piggyback him. You say, okay, we're going to limit your innings. You're going to go 5 innings because we need you for the playoffs.
All right, so I just did the math, and after Montero was added and Josh James was activated from the 60-day IL, the Astros now sit at 35 players on the roster. So that gives them 5 spots to add maybe 2 people, maybe protect 2 people from the Rule 5 draft, and maybe add 3 players, a first baseman, DH, and maybe something else.
A left field like Michael Brantley.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I think that if you're going to see a big move, I think it's going to be on either a first baseman or a DH. I don't see them going out and getting. We're not going into this conversation again, but you're not going to see them going into a Rizzo Bell and going out and getting Contreras. You're not going to see them make that type of move. If you do
But
that, what?
I may be coming back full circle on Rizzo, because I've been having a lot of conversations with people who scout, with people who pay attention to the minors, with people who pay attention to the behaviors of Jim Crane and his desire to win. And some people, Eric, are actually telling me that Rizzo is a real possibility, and that's what you
That's what
said
I
the other
said.
day, Eric. I know that's I'm sitting here.
I know.
I'm admitting to you that you were right in this, and but I still think that the Astros still have to consider the cost, because someone relayed to me that even if they lose the 500,000, they still have like 3.1 million for international signing,
Yeah.
which is quite a bit. I didn't think they had that much in the coffers for that. So at the end of the day, I trust that Jim Crane is going to make the right decision with this ball club.
Yeah, and that's why I said if he thinks Rizzo is the thing that's going to make this train go, then he'll go out and spend all the resources he needs to get it done. And so he is technically the GM of this team right now. I mean, he's not going to put the label on there, but everybody's going to Frickus and Ball and the Charles, the other guy. They're all going to go through Crane and Mr. Crane, what do you think about this? And Crane's going to be like, yay or nay. And if it's a yay, then they'll go for it. If it's a nay, then they'll figure out something. So I think that what you're seeing is the Astros are looking at making a change of thinking. For so long, they've been so frugal. They've been, under Click administration, they've been not frugal. They've been spending money, but they've been getting some players from the bargain basement. I don't know if you remember buying VHSs or DVDs, but at Walmart, they would have the $5 bins, and you can go get a $5 movie or maybe $1 movie or something. That's what James Click was doing. And yes, he got some good players, but then he also got some bad players. And then you also had Luno, who was building this juggernaut of a team that got caught doing something. So he got punished for it as well. And so all the strides he made, and he had a different philosophy. Yes, I think if it was the Luno in charge, I don't think that he would have signed Rizzo. But I think that Luno and Click are both gone. I think we're going to see a different thinking with Houston Astros.
Well, someone asked, and I think it was Mr. Corona. He just asked who was the one that okayed the Montero move, and it had to be James Click because he was still employed because that move got made a week before things went down. So that was definitely James Click, and apparently Jim Crane okayed that. I think that's a signal that Jim Crane is willing to spend this year. I think that's a signal and a sign, Eric, that Jim Crane is willing to probably go over that $55 million room that they have before they hit the luxury tax. For Major League Baseball. And Jim Crane would be smart, I think, to do that. Because not only do you have a wealth of talent that is coming up in one of the most underrated and underappreciated farm systems in all of baseball, even though they're not top, you have guys that are waiting. And you have guys that should be coming up getting an opportunity. You will see Pedro Leon at some point, I think in June, touch the Major League Baseball field. They just got to get that. They got to get his strikeouts down. I mean, if they can get it down from 37 to 25, if they can drop it by 10 or 12%, that would be a huge drop. I think you're going to see Hensley at first. I know that's mentioned a lot here. You're going to see Hensley get opportunities. I think they still give Jake Myers opportunities, but with Click not here, I don't know. Jake Myers may be one of those guys, Eric, that if they get into trade talks and things like that, he may be one of those viable options that goes, and that would give room for someone like a Corey Julks to come up, because Corey Julks, a local kid, can absolutely mash. You and I saw him play in person more than once this year. I think every game I went to, he hit a home run. He's a great player. He's great for the fans. He's a very good fielder. He's fast. And like I said, he's a local product. It's hard to deny a kid like that at least an opportunity. Someone here says, get Brandon Nimmo. Now, Brandon Nimmo is a free agent that could come here and would be a great center fielder, would be an overall upgrade. But against left-handed batters, remember, against left-handed pitchers, Chas McCormick had like a 127 WRC plus. So, Chas McCormick didn't do terrible against lefties, and that's a good thing. But I think it's Chaz's position first right now, and everybody else is second fiddle unless they sign a free agent to that position.
Yeah, I think that somebody says that Nimmo is expensive. They also said that he's really good defensively. I think that, like you said, it's going to be McCormick's position, especially with how he played in postseason, until they blows them away for a offer they can't pass up. And I think like if starting Marte's still available, or somebody like that who can not only add the defense, the power, but also the speed. I guess Marte is more of a speed guy, but he does offer a little bit of power. But for those of y'all who are just now joining, John Morosi earlier tweeted that Bill Furcus, the Astros senior director of baseball strategy during the 2022 season, is now the point person for the club's free agent discussions following the departure of James Click. So he is the number one guy in the front office until they come up with another GM. So that is definitely something that's new. You have a three-headed assistant GM, no true real GM. So everybody's going to be, it's going to be a bunch of talking heads just being like, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? And so I think this could be good. I think this could also be a little bit where you have too many different opinions, but I think Crane knows what he's doing, and we'll see what's going on. But the Astros have known short-term GMs in their past. Gabe Wilson, 1960 to 61, lasted 184 days as the Astros. Sorry, Gabe Paul lasted 184 days as a GM. Bob Watson lasted 2 years and 18 days between 1993 and 95. Dick Wagner, 1985, 1987, 2 years, 1 month, 10 days. Then you also had James Click, 2 years, 9 months, 8 days. And then Tim Purpura. We all remember him. 2004, 2007, 2 years, 9 months, and 26 days. So he's not the shortest GM in Astros history, but he's definitely one of the most memorable ones because he won a World Series.
So we could totally clip that and make it sound like you were calling him short. He's not the shortest GM the Astros have ever had. He's not
Yeah, there
served the
you go.
least amount. I know what you mean. It was just it came out great. I was totally expecting that to come out. You just teed that up nicely for me. So yes, James Click. I don't know if he's the shortest GM, but it's okay. Look, I'm only 5'8.5", so I can take the short jokes. It's all good. So look, at the end of the day, the Astros have their work cut out for them. I think they get something done smartly in the offseason. If the rumors are correct that Justin Verlander is looking at 40 plus million, that he's really leaning West Coast because of Kate Upton's family, then I see him going out west, Dodgers, San Francisco, Seattle. I don't know Seattle. I'm just saying somewhere out on the West Coast. And the Astros aren't going to pay him $40 million. The Houston Astros have plenty to think about. Jerry Hudsinger, I don't know how long he lasted. He was here for a few years, I think. But it is just one of those things where it's going to be exciting off season, Eric, and it's going to be neat to see what direction the Astros go. I'm also hearing that Yuli and Brantley are like most likely to come back to the Astros. That's their most likely landing spot. That the Astros are really wanting to sign him.
Right.
I know Yuli and Crane were golfing the other day together. I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything since you had the Houston Open, but hey, nonetheless, they're talking, and so they have an open line of communication. So I expect to see Yuli. I expect to see Brantley. I think they shore up the center field position. If they don't, Chas McCormick, I think, takes charge and does a great job. But I really do like the outside chances of getting another frontline pitcher. And again, I'm going to put it in an article that'll be out either tomorrow or Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday this week saying why it would make sense for the Astros to do that.
Yes. So I think that just real quick, I'll address this. Brandon Snyder says, do you bring Hunter Brown out of pen to start now? Yes, I think that he's going to be a starter for the Houston Astros in 2023. Sorry. But the question is, if he is the starter, who would be out of the rotation? That's the question.
I think he's going to be a bullpen guy, if I'm being
Probably.
real honest. I think he's going to be a long reliever. Again, in my article, I'm going to talk about they're going to have hybrid starters this next
Yeah.
year. They're going to have guys that are going to piggyback. And Hunter Brown did that a lot. He started innings 5 through 9 or 4 through 9 when he was in Sugarland. You can do that with a guy and still get numbers. You can still get innings pitched, and he will be up for Rookie of the Year. He'll probably be one of the top 10, if not top 5 rookies this next season. He'll get his innings, Eric, one way or another, but that also is another piece of this puzzle that's going to be tough to figure out is where do you slot everybody in. The long run, it helps. 20 plus pitchers this last year, 9 starters this last year. You may have between 9 and 11 starters this season and maybe 25 different pitchers that you see out of the bullpen over the course of the 162 game regular season.
And I was actually waiting for you to say that Michael Brantley was out there playing golf. I would have been super impressed with that with his shoulder issues, but
No, it
unfortunately,
was
that's not
Yuli.
the case. I know. I know.
Apparently Yuli has a short game, and he
That's
can
fine.
he can
Yeah.
he can hit the irons well. So
So maybe it was like the conversation I had with Crane and Justin Verlander. If you make this putt, I'll give you a 1-year deal or something like that. But so in terms of coaching staff to bring back Dusty Baker's crew or his posse, however you want to say it, only guys that are left unsigned is Bill Murphy, one of the pitching coaches, and catching coach Michael Collins. They're still the only 2 coaches without contracts as of right now. Omar Lopez is there. Gary Pettis is there. So everybody is there for the Astros in 2023. So the coaching staff is still there. So we'll see. But congrats to Ryan Stanek.
yes, Ryan Stanek got married this weekend. They actually had their wedding yesterday, made it official. They tied the knot. They said the vows. So congrats to him and his wife on their marriage. They had several Astros players. Former Houston Astro great Carlos Correa was in attendance. His wife posted pictures on Instagram. If you follow her on Instagram, go check those out. It looked like they had a great time. Jeremy Pena this last weekend was in New York. He was at the Jimmy Fallon show, at the Gold Glove Awards. And so you had a lot of interesting a lot of really cool things happened this weekend with Houston Astros. Former Astro Miles Straw won the Gold Glove, so that was neat. So there were some cool things that happened for the Astros and former Astros as well.
Jonathan asked, when did Astros go to the White House? I don't know. I think that Biden's still trying to answer the Twitter question. So once he answers that, they can probably work something out. But I think the Astros are also supposed to go to Saturday Night Live as well. And so we haven't heard when that's going to happen as well. So there's a lot of stuff that takes a little bit of time. If I remember correctly, it's not right away. I think it's closer towards January or something like that. So
It's after the holidays. It's
yeah,
kind of into next season. So yeah, that'll happen when it happens. And so, that'll be something that every team does. And
yeah,
hopefully they all go. Hopefully it's not a big ruckus or people don't. It's just like, look, the president invites you, go visit the
yeah.
White House. Like, not everybody gets to do that.
Yeah. So definitely it was a great weekend. A lot to talk about. Montero's back, Espada's back. A lot of the boys are back. And now just need to see what's next for the Houston Astros. Now that they have their acting GM for now, even though he's not labeled GM, they have a way to negotiate with free agents and they have a way to make deals and do everything they need to do before the winter meeting. So in Jim Crane, we trust at this moment. And that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. Make sure you check us out every day on YouTube. Make sure you go and hit subscribe. Go ahead and make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, and Spotify. And please, if you're on TikTok, go ahead and go follow H-Town Wheelhouse and me, Eric the Man, and also Locked On Astros. And definitely, if you are off tomorrow, and you have a chance to go to the Raising Cane's off the Gulf Freeway, Jeremy Pena will be working a drive-through, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a really long line. So that's all we got for this edition, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. And my name's Eric Huysman. He is Brett Chancey. We are the Locked On Astros podcast, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Go Astros.